Hi, and welcome back to the Time for Tea Designs YouTube channel. This is Lauren, and I have a cute little duck dynamic card to share with you today. I'm using the Lucky Ducks clear stamps and their coordinating dies, and I have already stamped, die cut, and colored two of the ducks, two of my flower and cattail bunches, as well as another flower, a dragonfly, and a bee, and I've used a gold gel pen to add stripes onto my bee. And I'm going to use my dynamic display card die set, and I'm using all of the dies from this set. So the base die, the die to create a curved edge. I have the two front hill pieces and the two inside pieces. I'm going to cut all of them. So I have my background cut in some blue cardstock. The two middle pieces are cut in green cardstock. And then I have the two front pieces for the final die cut out of some green and blue cardstock. And then I cut an additional front die cut piece and die cut it with the grassy border from the landscape edge die set, and that was to create one more layer. I wanted it to look like there was kind of a little lake or a pond where my ducks are going to be playing, so I'm using grass to create different sides of my little pond. You'll see as it comes together. And I want to add some depth and dimension to these die cut pieces. So for all of the green, I grabbed my Mode Lawn Distress Oxide, and I'm using one of my brushes to add in that color and just create some depth for all of those green pieces. For my front hill, as you can see here, I am using that blue piece to make sure I get that green ink up high enough that it will show behind the blue piece that I will later glue on top of it. So once all of the green is done, I'm going to clean my supplies and then move on to blue, and I grabbed Salty Ocean and another brush, and I'm adding some Distress Oxide to my little pond piece of water. So bringing that color up just to add a little bit of dimension and color to my colored cardstock, which is one of my favorite techniques to do, just to deepen up the color shade on my colored cardstock. Once all of that was done, we're going to start assembling. So I am folding the blue background base of my Dynamics display card and folding it in kind of a zigzag or a mountain valley fold, and that will create the card base. And then I'm going to take the larger of the two inserts. As you can see, it fits perfectly in that little shadow box area of the display card. I'm going to add some 1/4 inch double-sided adhesive to the flaps of that inner piece. Once I have those in place, I will pull off the release paper, and then I'm going to place it onto the card. So I am going to take the left side of this die cut piece and line it up with the first fold towards the center of the card. So where I have that valley fold, and I'm going to line it up to be on the bottom, close that blue fold over, and it will adhere to the adhesive and secure that in place. And I'm going to repeat that for the other side. So I have my furthest back hill already placed inside of my display card. And here you can see from the top, and that's able to close and move freely. So I think it was placed in a good spot. I'm going to do the next hill the exact same way. This time I'm going to place it so the flap lines up with the piece already adhered on the inside of my display background. And once I have that in place, I will just use my finger and add pressure to make sure that adhesive sticks. So I didn't really put in my head together that inside the smaller hill of the display almost is exactly the same height as my front hill that I die cut. And I thought about lowering and trimming, but at the end it covered it and it was okay. So if you are going to replicate this card, you don't need to add in that smaller hill inside piece. It's just going to be completely covered, but it's okay. I'm going to work with it. So for the front part of my display card, I took the green and added some 1/4 inch adhesive to both sides, making sure it would only overlap with that front part of the display card on both sides. Peeled up the release paper and adhered it down. Now I can use some wet glue to attach the pond part of my card, so just adding it behind the blue cardstock and then lining it up and adhering that down. And then I will repeat that same process with my little strip of grass. So I've created my little scene and I think it looks really cute. Again, I love adding depth and dimension with inks to be able to create more with the scene. Now you can make this card without any ink blending. You could just use colored cardstock, but I like adding that extra touch to really create more dimension on my cards. So now that that's done, I can start building my scene with my stamped images. So I'm going to start with one of my cattails and flowers, and I'm going to tuck it behind the water so that way it looks like it's on the other side of the little pond. And then I will attach my other piece behind that hill that I glued to the front part of the card. So I'm going to tuck it behind, so I'm going to add the glue to the front of the image rather than behind the image. And once that's in place, I can grab my little ducks and my little critters, so the dragonfly and the bee and my flower, and work on figuring out how I want to add those to the card. So I'm going to take my two ducks and kind of play around with my scene, and I settle on putting them in the background. So I'm going to grab my wet glue and I'm just going to add glue to the bottoms and feet of my little ducks because that is the only place where they make contact with that green hill. So I'm going to start with my first duck, placing it where I want it to go, and then just applying some pressure to make sure that it sticks. And then I want this duck on the right to have the little flower in its hand, so I'm going to add a little bit of glue to where the flower will attach to my little duck's right wing, and I'm going to grab a clip that I use for cases where I can't really apply pressure very easily and I want the glue to dry a little before I move on. So I just use a little kind of paper clip to keep that in place while I add glue to my duck on the left and add him down to the left side, or her down, because this is going to be a Mother's Day card. So I'm going to place her on the left, and once the glue seems to be secured, I can move on to the next part of my card. I grabbed some acetate from my stash and I'm trimming it down into two small pieces because I'm going to use acetate to attach my dragonfly and my little bee because I want them to be floating like they're flying across my card. So I'm adding some 1/8 of an inch double-sided adhesive this time to the top of one piece of my acetate, and I'm going to hide this glue behind my dragonfly. So my dragonfly is attached to the top of this acetate piece, and then I'm going to repeat that same process for my little bee. Now my bee is a lot smaller, so I need to make sure I add an appropriate amount of adhesive so it won't show behind my bee. Once I have those down, I can figure out how I want to add my two little insects to my card and how much adhesive I need on the bottom part of my acetate. So I'm going to place my dragonfly on the right side, and I want it to be pretty high up so that way you can see it above the cattails. So I'm just going to add a little bit of adhesive to the bottom of that acetate. And I am going to attach this to the back side of that front insert that you can't really see. So I guess I did use it. It's not gone to waste sitting in there, but I am attaching it to the back so you do not see the adhesive attaching the acetate to the card. And I'm repeating that same process with the bee. This time I will have the bee a little lower, so lower than the dragonfly, so I can add a little more adhesive to that piece of acetate, and again adhering it behind that front little hill insert that I glued to the inside of the display card. And that will complete adding my little critters, but I still need a sentiment. Like I said, I'm creating this as a Mother's Day card. I know that Mother's Day has already passed over in the UK, but it's coming up here in the States, so I wanted to create a fun little Mother's Day card using some of our spring sets. So I stamped and die cut the sentiment. I'm a lucky duck to have you as a mom, which I think is so cute. And I love that the stamp set comes with coordinating dies for the sentiments and creates a fun little bubble cut around them. It's so perfect. One of my favorite things I like about the Time for Tea stamps and die sets. So I'm just using some wet glue and my grid mat to help me glue that down as centered as possible to the front of my card. I still felt like it needed a little something more, so I'm going to grab my clouds from the Windmill add-on die set, and I am going to die cut both shapes of those clouds, figure out how I want them to go on the front of my card, and then I will grab some wet glue and adhere those down. With that, that will finish up my card. I hope you enjoyed this process video and that you try something similar yourself. I think the ducks are so cute, and even though Easter has passed, they are still perfect little spring critters, especially with the amazing scene building stamps in this set. So here is a final look at the card. You can see inside of it. You can see how it folds flat-ish to be able to be placed in an envelope and mailed if you'd like. Here is another close-up. Check out the description down below for links to the products as well as a code to save on your next purchase. Make sure you head over to Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest for even more inspiration. Thanks for watching. Bye.